In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, in honor of the original unconditional moment, that all conditional moments have arisen from and will return to, in the presence of the system admin, the world host, and the original being to this existential system, world room, and simulation. So, in the presence of the original moment, what do we simulated beings do, and what can a simulated being tell a bunch of other simulated beings in a strangely original place? And what does the idea, or the vision, or the view of an unconditional faith beyond the mind's stories or the mind's miserable stories mean? It is not possible to avoid change in a changing world, and we try very hard to do this, and the mechanism that our intelligence uses to not change the world is to convince us that we are a character in a specific story. To talk about faith is to realize there is a conditional relationship with what you have faith in and an unconditional relationship. Conditional faith means that if you do like a specific passcode, like if you do specific things, if in these conditions, then in some sense one has faith. That means if I believe God is a shape or a form, that's a conditional faith in God. But if I realize that space is proving to me that form isn't the only, things aren't the only validity, and so to me this relationship between not just faith, conditional faith, unconditional faith, but these two words are, like, I think two of the most important words in the human experience. And one is conditional, the other unconditional. An unconditional faith would be a faith that doesn't require condition. Now this is such a far from our experience idea, because we don't know anything other than the conditions that we've been aware of. We are identifying with conditional reality. Those things that are unconditional, they are beyond reason. They are beyond a sort of analytical meaning. Unconditional, you can see it as unknown. The unknown is more unconditional than the known, which is in a specific condition. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you an example, something that somebody pointed out to me. I had the privilege of living in Dubai for some time, for around 2 years. And now I'm back in Toronto, Canada. When I was there were Like there were certain restrictions on things that a person can do. And when I relocated back to Canada, those restrictions weren't there. And this isn't something new. I'm just saying that it is very clear to me that the mind is doing its own thing, just like the body is doing its own thing, is being its own thing, or the mind is being its own activity. But it is not that activity of the body and mind we cannot limit ourselves to that. Okay? I'll say it in the way that pretty much that example of me from Dubai and Canada was that I realized because the thing wasn't there in Dubai, I didn't have a problem. But when the thing was in the environment in Canada, then I had a problem. Then the question came, somebody pointed out to me, what's the difference? And I realized that the mind is doing a lot of sales. It's selling itself to an unknown being. Okay, that means we have this approach where we identify with our minds, or with our subjective reality, or we identify with our objective reality. But what if objects and subjects are performing in the presence of an unknown awareness? Because it is unknown, it cannot conditionalize itself. That means it's very difficult. It's like we're inside a box. We can't see outside of the box. And because we can't see outside of the box, we can assume that there's the truth outside of the box is based on inside the box, or not based on what's inside the box. To me, I noticed something very interesting in many religions and many cultures. It is there. If you look at many prophetic figures, whether it's Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or Prophet Christ, Isa Masih, peace be upon him, they had a quality about them, which I think it comes to the closest word, unconditional faith. In Moses threw his staff in front of the Pharaoh and the magicians that the Pharaoh had gathered, not because he knew how it was gonna happen, because he had faith that the right thing will happen. And that to me is so very fascinating. In the Islamic universe, there is 99 names of God. Okay, but these names are attributes, like for example the attribute of mercy, but they are the unconditional. They're like the unconditional version of the attribute. That means if man has conditional mercy, like you can't be merciful all the time, or you're merciful in a certain condition, okay, or let's say powerful, let's say you have power. Let's take the word power. God is also all powerful. Okay, and so it's as if like the human experience's expression of power, the power we find in this world is conditional. The whole point of the world, they say the human condition, right? But it's actually an unknown condition, and a human has appeared. Okay, and that condition, what surrounds it is the unconditional. So for example, man, which is in the created position, there's a very interesting distinction here, that the creation, so we have the archetype of the creator and we have the archetype of creation. Okay, the creation is a created being, and it's a conditional being that has to adapt to the conditions of the world to exist, to survive, right? We have to adapt to this condition. We have to take existence seriously if we want to continue in it, right? So we adapt to the conditions as created beings, but the creator doesn't need to adapt to anything. Everything, all the conditions adapt to this notion of an absolute being. So we are conditional beings. God is an unconditional being. The love that we have is a conditional love. The love that God has, the creator, or the notion of the original moment. That means to me, God is, most people, I say an original being, but we cannot fathom that being. So Whether you want to see God as the original cause and man as the simulated effect, the original cause is not limited to the simulated effect, but the simulated effect is limited to the original cause. So the attributes of God in the Islamic universe are all powerful, all knowing, all merciful, all forgiving, you know, all great, al-kabir, if I remember correctly. And what it means is something beyond a condition created this condition, and we who are in this condition somehow can notice that we didn't create this condition. People think that, like for me, the biggest thing that pulled me towards the system admin, towards realizing that this world has a system admin, okay, was simply just this. It wasn't even like somebody having to even need to preach anything. It was just being like, wait a minute, I didn't create this place. I didn't create myself. I didn't create these words that I'm using. So what am I here? And that question took me that, okay, if I did, sorry, not what am I here, if I didn't create it, what did, or who did, and what is it? So to me, imagine if an alien approached and I was like part of an advanced elite team of, like, I don't know, intellectuals who were like, okay, how do we engage this alien? Okay, I would say, okay, we would just look at its conditions, we would analyze its existence, we would, I don't know, get it to, like, I don't know, taste ice cream and analyze its DNA or something. Do you know what and on some level, right? It's a condition, but it's a condition we don't know about, and we're using the conditions from our past to figure out the condition of something new that has emerged, right? It's a conditional relationship. But if somebody was like, how do you get to know God? Now, Christian universe is different than Islamic universe. Okay, we have to acknowledge this. Okay, but guess what? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. That means the Creator granted the freedom of many worlds to exist, many flowers to exist in the garden of existence. And yet we think that truth has to be singular because they've conditioned us to think that we're singular, to be nothing other than just this thought that is suffering. You know, when I said an unconditional faith beyond the mind's miserable stories, it's because that's what it is. It's the misery is that it's like, dude, I'm not realizing it. The mind is setting the condition. So when I was, let's say, when I was in Dubai, that thing that I had a problem with wasn't there, so it was easy to not have that problem. But when I came back to Canada, that problem was there, right? And I was identifying with the problem. But then when I suddenly was kind of like, they brought it to my attention, okay, what was the difference from there and here? And I realized it's the story the mind has told itself. But even deeper than that, it's the character the mind has convinced itself. That means it's like, imagine living a life and being like, wait a minute, am I what I think I am? Or am I convincing myself by being this thing I am, by constantly having that view or thought there? You know? To me, my awareness has realized that there is dehumanized sectors here. Everything's pretty much dehumanized other than the human being. You know, we can choose to humanize it. Like we talk, let's say pet owners, you know, they go and rescue a dog, right? And then they, you know, talk to the dog as like good girl or good boy or something like that, you know? And they humanize the dog. They talk to the dog like a three-dimensional being, like a cube, like talking to a square, and the square like not being able to process the cube, but being like, oh, yo, I noticed the cube. You know what I mean? And you know, I ask myself, what kind of life do you want to live, man? Do you want to live a life that is conditional? That if you only did these things, you lived a good life, you lived a great life only if you went this specific path? And then if I even, let's say the intellect, our let's say the ego is like, yo, man, I better do good stuff here before I go, or I better do great stuff here before I go. But are you the ego? That means I have been, and it's kind of cool because this is a collective moment where one person can share how they stepped out of their brainwashing, okay? And I am making this argument that the human system in itself, at its core, is not natural. But because it is in the presence of nature, it cannot avoid the natural. You know, we are unnatural in the sense that what animal in nature? Show me one animal in nature that names itself, that doubts the environment. Sometimes when I look at animals, I remember as a kid I would notice this, right? They have such confidence. They don't doubt. Like they doubt is inaccurate. Okay, if like the information doesn't make sense based on their reality, but it was just this fascinating, super fascinating view. Yo, look at how that tiger, leaped with pure confidence. That goat bawed with pure confidence. And they don't doubt themselves. Why? Because they don't have this unnatural sense of self that has to align to a unnatural, specific kind of reality that is not natural. Do you know what it is? Imagine if an alien lands on Earth and we force it to be human. That's stupid. Do you know? Or if a human is like forced to be an alien. You're not. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? That means just by forcing reality into a position, it doesn't mean we actually did something, like for me, I'm asking myself this. Okay, recently I have kind of burned through my emergency fund, but a part of me is like, yo, man, would you rather be owned by a condition like the biggest question in my mind is this, that let's forget all the concepts and at some point just look at it and it's like energy here. I'm this energy. Now, in order to maintain this energy, I drink, I was about to say drink food. I eat food, and I drink water and I sleep. It's a condition. In order for me to exist tomorrow, there's physical things the individual needs to do. But the question is, that's the conditional life. So my condition, so imagine, okay, this is going to be cool. Imagine I'm this unknown being and you're like, hey man, what's your unconditional life and what's your conditional life? Tell me about your conditional life and tell me about your unconditional life. Like, how's your unconditional life? How's your conditional life? The conditional life is legit like solving the same problem every day. It's legit like how in Greek mythology, Atlas or whoever it was that would push the boulder and then the boulder would fall down, an eagle would like eat his liver or something, and the boulder would fall down and the next day would have to repeat. In ancient mythology, repetition is divine punishment. In heaven, you can do anything you want. In hell, you loop. Heaven is the suggestion of an unconditional world. Any condition is possible. Earth, only a specific condition. So, I guess in a changing world, change can't be avoided. The conditional life is an object, is actually like an intelligence. My conditional life is like an intelligence that a subject, it's like my soul wants to be a specific subject for the object to become. It's like I'm this unknown viewer, presence of awareness right now. The conditional life is like being lost in one room of a place where it has endless rooms. The unconditional life is to no longer be in the building. So I have never thought about metaphysics in this way, but what if this world is like a building? I've entered a room. And if there's infinite possibility, that means there is no ending. So energy can't be created or destroyed. It changes from form to form. We human beings acknowledge that we're energy. If the energy was alive, a part of us just changes from form to form, potential energy to kinetic energy, and then I guess converting into some sort of potential energy, kinetic energy. So think of it this way. What is life like? What is a conditional life of a mortal being? And what is the conditional life of an immortal being? For an immortal being, the conditional life would probably become entrapment. But for a mortal being, the conditional life is an opportunity. Imagine in the eternal presence of being, okay. You know, I'll be very frank. The experience of this life feels to me like I'm in the presence of two beings. Do you know? One is a worldly being, the one is an unworldly being. The unworldly being is already free, the worldly being is not free. So what does this mean? Why are we in conditions? If God could have created a perfect being, why is God testing man? Why is God testing his creation? I've never asked this. And there is an answer, interestingly, there is an answer in the Islamic universe where it says all good things come from God, all bad things come from you. Why? What is that you? Is that physical you or ego you? O speaker of worlds, make sure you're not just lost in one world. So it's all about where this energy in the present, what's gonna happen. I'm tired of explaining things based on the past. And why have I been doing this for so long? I need to look into the future. Oh, system admin of this system, of all systems, guide me now to see beyond what I am now. Open doors that do not exist yet. Bless the moment to emerge free from its conditional limitation. O system admin of this realm, O you, O original being, O truth of all truths, O the original. We human beings, we notice the conditions set. We notice that you have provided the opportunity of journeys in the void, but that journey needed content. And what is the end result? Why has man kept the presence of the world to himself, but then divided it as if there is not only this world? If you go back to the ancients, not only there was this world, there were lower worlds and there were higher worlds. And yet we loop in the same world every day in 2026. They took away the dimensions of the world by taking away the dimensions of the self. And by looping in the dimensions of the self, your soul gets bored because it was meant for more. O Lord of worlds, I see this world, and I see that you have designed it so it's impossible to see myself. Because, guys, the greatest clue now explains it. Our eyes are on our face. They are not above our head. Our eyes are on our face. We are designed to face this realm. The past is what has been faced from before and now exists within you. What is remarkable about how this intelligence we call human is functioning is that it is not just functioning as a non-fictional object. It is also functioning as a fictional subject, and we have ignored this. And the fictional subject is more real to the conscious experiencer than the object. The object is just there, but the subject can be moved. Existence stands here as I stand here. But what is it? What is it that is allowing us not to be statues? That means it's a film, and we've been processing portraits our whole life. We've been reacting to portraits of the realm. It's a dynamic film. Now, the bigger thing, it's like, okay, what happens after you realize you're an unknown being? See, guys, if you want to learn, if you want to know stuff, or let me say it this way. You already have an employer for your truth in the outer realms, okay? Or sorry, not for truth. That means every human being is strangely employed by their environment. That means if you go to a new company, you're entering a new environment. And in some sense, what controls that environment and what it gives you is the reward. Do you understand? That means if I come and tell you jump up and down, I'll give you $3. For every jump, $1 for every jump, or I'll give you $300, $100 for each jump. Okay, it's like, yeah, sure, you can tell yourself whatever story, but you jumped 3 times in the air for my will. Do you understand? To get the reward. Now, tell me this. Is it different if you give a bone to a dog or if you give income to a human being? Do you understand? Do you know? Or if it's an alien getting, I don't know, some sort of transcendental gift of like higher dimensional access or something. Do you know what I'm saying here? I am saying that the world is actually, it's not anything. It's like everything is not anything. That's the bizarre part. Okay, and that's a double-edged sentence, and it strangely satisfies both edges. That means that sentence could be heard in 2 ways anytime I say double-edged. So, guys, the value that I can provide for you in this talk is to just tell you guys where I am, what station this consciousness is, and what sort of response what sort of retaliation, what is my counter attack or counter strategy to everything, everything in front of me. Like, do you understand this? This is a very bizarre concept. I don't like to use this word, but it's a cool way to link the idea. I've said that it's like you wake up in the morning and existence is a value proposition. Okay? But maybe we look at it differently. Imagine you are a general, or let's say general. If I say king, you're gonna like lose yourself. But I'll say, imagine you're a general of an army. Or let me see, what else can I say? Okay, you're a general of an army. That's what consciousness in the morning is. The general is there. And okay, let me use the term king, okay? I mean, the ego's trying to act like king. Okay, I'll use the idea of king, whatever. Every morning you wake up, your awareness to the world is like a kingdom. You're a king of your kingdom. And everything that happens, or excuse me, your awareness, your presence of awareness is the kingdom. And everything you notice in your awareness is like attacking that kingdom. Or think of it maybe this way. You're an invisible being, but everything you see that is visible is trying to convince you you're visible. What is the counter strategy then? What is the counter strategy? That means imagine I'm this enlightened, I'm this like liberated space. Dude, like imagine I'm just this moment of pureness. Okay, imagine I'm just this pure, enlightened, completed being. Okay, excuse me. A being of space. I'm trying to say, imagine I'm not any form. Imagine I'm just a field. Okay, imagine it's like you're a field of intelligence. It's like, okay, there's like conditional problems to solve every day, all to try to figure out if you're unconditional or not. Okay, so I'm an unknown being right now in an unknown place, but in my experience, I find existential content. Right now, I'm in this moment of awareness, like that's my experience right now, and I find my body is just here, and I find that the world is just here. And it's as if I'm this like invisible potential energy. And the moment, do you know what it is? It's like, yo man, there is no life here. There's no there's no life here. We're just attention. It's just the presence of attention. That's the thing that doesn't change. Presence doesn't change. So, am I what I'm looking at, or am I what I'm looking at because I'm looking at it? Or am I never what I'm looking at because it's just there? You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that what has convinced me I'm human? My body is simulated here for some time. The world universe entropically is simulated here for some time. Every day that I wake up, the conscious waking state resimulates. It's as if existence is like a simulation that is just there. And existence is there, but it's changing way slower than experience is changing. And the fact that we're experiencing life faster, we are changing experientially faster than we're existentially changing. That's why there's the illusion of a life. It's a matter of different speeds. That means if I'm an experiential entity, every new experience is changing. Every new thing that comes into every way my attention moves, it's like a new. Do you know what it's like? If I'm trying to think about life if I wasn't born here, but I arrived here, how I would feel about it. Because I'm born here, I'm identifying with here. But if I wasn't born here, like I'll give you an example. So I was born in Iran. I saw that culture. And then I was raised in Canada. I saw that culture. But it's like me imagining if I was born in Japan and immigrated to Russia, for example. Do you know what I mean? Or to Holland or something. Or what would that be? Like, who would I be then? So do you see what I'm saying? Like, we're experientially changing. Things are reality. So there's two realities. There is the mind's experience, the inner realms, and then there is the body's existence. And we have this view that if the body doesn't exist, how can the experiencer exist? So we connect the notion of objects to the experiencer of the subject. Just because we're experiencing a subject doesn't mean we are a subject. Just because an object is keeping me here doesn't mean I am an object. So I am telling you here, whoa, something weird. Okay, if I had arrived, like when I go to, like, one of my biggest dreams is to go live in Japan, But I'm just saying, guys, existence is one life. Experience is as many lives as it continues. In this moment right now, what is real? Like, I don't, let's for a second assume that we didn't, and nobody could get to us and share an opinion before, and we were like, okay, let me just see what this is. Let me just see what I am. So do you see how disconnected we are from our being? We're like, what is this? Rather than, oh my God. They disconnected us from our original life. I shouldn't say it like that. I should say... I'm pretty much saying this, guys. Imagine right now, I'm going to go back to this view. I'm an unknown, legit, like an unknown being. Okay? Two crossroads in front of me. That means imagine, this higher power was like, all right, you have two choices here. Okay? You go through this door. You're going to identify with existence more. And if you go to this door, you're going to identify with experience more. Now, the thing about existence is what owns it. That means imagine before the first person who was named who could own anything, do you know? There is no owner because it's not a subject that owns the object. But we've been brainwashed to think that, no, I'm a subject and I own this object and everything. And as this subject, I'm going to get more objects. When others tell you, what are you doing? That's like, that has an intensity. But when a part of you suddenly, like, it's as if like a sleeping giant, like, what have I been doing sleeping here? And it's so, like, from one angle, I think that too many images at once, I'm overloading. I'm joking. This is the view, guys. When somebody says an unconditional faith beyond the mind stories, the question should be, okay, the only way, the view should be like, the only way there can be an unconditional moment if no condition defines it. So why do we all want freedom? Holy shit, we all want freedom, right? Everybody's like, I want to be free, liberty, right? But what is freedom? Freedom is unconditional. You're not responsible for the conditions. Here, I have to spend my energy to keep existing as energy. Weird, no? I'm this being here. I'm existing in existence, and I got to go do specific things in existence to continue to exist in existence. And while doing all those specific things to exist, never wondering about what is existence. I was kind to civilization 1.0 for too long. The only thing that means, you see, emotional justifications, you can grant them, like, because there is no calculation to them. When you act in accordance to emotion, it's like, yo, man, I just feel this. I just feel like jumping in the air right now. Okay. But if you're suddenly wondering about how you're gonna, like, Neo jump from one building to the other building, like, then suddenly analysis, content, the more your moment becomes conditional, the more you are something that is specific and gets in some sense, so, oh my God. So think of it this way. Imagine there's this big boss called change. There's this big boss called the changing world. Do you know? Or I should say boss, there's just this manager, and this manager is called time. Okay, and time's like, all right, time, you have a bunch of existential employees, manage them. And time's like, all right, how do we get all of them here? And time realizes, Shaitan is time. Shaitan is time. The devil is time. The devil is time. God is unconditional. Time, the awareness to time is the anti-human moderator. Time is the devil. What the fuck? Just blowing my own mind here. Okay. Let me just look at it again. Something feels off with that sentence. Let me go through. I'm saying this. Imagine time is a manager, and time is like change. Everything's changing. You know. And existence is taking shifts, experiential shifts. I'm saying it this way, man. I'm just this, adorable, human in a gigantic cosmos. You know what I mean? Just the human species. Look at this adorable, biological program roaming the surface of the earth. Human beings are like butterflies to higher beings, like adorable. And at the same time, I'm here as this like basic self, and time is changing everything. If I want something conditional in a changing world, I'll never get it. How can I get it? It's changing. That means this self of me right now, imagine, wants a private airplane. It's like, imagine I want my own airplane as a private studio or something. Do you know what I mean? So like Mr.Within, big dreams. First try to sell your $1 books. Just But I'm saying anyways, the whole point of it is, if I right now want to be something, if I right now want a private airplane, or whatever object or whatever form in this world, if everything's changing, is it easier to be a conditional being or unconditional being? Is it more true to be a conditional being? That means like it doesn't make sense to stand still on a treadmill. So that means we have to run. So every being in existence is running on this treadmill of time. And they're running to stay on the treadmill. If you get out, if you fall off the treadmill, you're not on the treadmill. Oh no. They're like, all right, man, it's just a treadmill. It's like, yeah, that's not a bad view either. It's just a treadmill. So I'm pretty much saying this, man. Whatever opinion I have myself, the world's like, buddy, that's hilarious. You're gonna change by tomorrow. I'm like, what? It's like whatever. So if I want life to be a specific condition, I will be unsatisfied till the end of time. So the specificity is an error in this world, maybe. Specific truth, error. General truth, closer, because the system's unknown. It's more unknown than known. Do you know, guys, that a lot of the things I couldn't do in the outer realms, I've done in the inner realms? In the inner realms, playfully, when I get angry, sometimes at myself, I envision a version of me slamming, like legit grabbing a version of me from its shirt and slamming it, throwing it to a building. In my inner realms, you don't understand the ways I've even know myself. That means I know myself in way more differently than I know myself in front of my eyes. And I am telling you, my beloved species, you're disconnected from the reality. Do you know why? Because our subjective experience of what existence should represent as a symbol is being prioritized or taken more seriously. We're taking the subject more seriously than the object we suffer. If you take the object less seriously, if you take the subject less seriously than the object, you don't suffer. But at the same time, life loses its complexity. So we have to understand suffering accompanies complexity, but complexity is a blessing also. And they're like, why is complexity a blessing, Mr. Within? I'm like, you haven't been bored yet existentially. What you are actually seeing on Earth when I give these talks in the last maybe year or so, after 2024, when this car hit me when I was crossing the street in Dubai. And after that moment, I realized I can be dismissed at any moment. That means it's like it's slowly changing. It can change anytime. It's just intensities of change. If my body changes, like faster than the body is changing faster than the objective, the objective self is changing slower than the subjective self. That's why you can say you're a subject that owns this object. That's the only reason. Different speeds. The inner realms is faster. I've known this. So, ladies and gentlemen, behind your eyes, you have access to a very fast life, but a very complex life and a very simulated life, separate. That's the thing about existence. Existence is like they didn't give us the memo. If they had, they'd be like, okay, when you exist, like imagine like this job was a project, and you were like this project manager before this life, and they're like, all right, you're gonna go do this project, and you're like, okay, man, what is the project about? Give me some details, give me some info, let me know what's going on. We don't have that memo. We awaken like, okay, you have a specific design, so because design things have purpose, you're like, okay, you have a specific design, go and be that purpose. Okay, but the human being has access to, in some sense, a greater environment than the outer environment. The discovery of the inner realms, okay, was the greatest discovery, because that's where all the other discoveries after that were found. The awareness is by far the most fascinating thing that is happening here, because without it, you don't know what's happening here. You have been treated like a subject. You have been named. What are you, a freaking animal? Are we animals that need to be branded to be treated as valuable? I'm not saying that we shouldn't be nameless. I'm just saying that we have, it's like they named you, and then when you were named, you started becoming a subject to yourself. When you were a subject to yourself, you had a choice. Do I move my subject, or does the world move my subject? Now, when you're young, unless you're some very strong-willed soul from the beginning, usually the world tells you what to do, what to be, what to think, what to see. The world tells you what to see. But you have your own eyes. That means today, right now in 2026, we're like, yo, man, what are the problems of my life? You think thousands of years in the future, you have the privilege to be just yourself? We know that the inner realms manifest in the outer realms. We know that Nikola Tesla invented the AC motor behind his eyes. He saw it, he figured it out, and then he brought it into the outer realms. You think speaking is what is speech? They don't tell you what it is behind the scenes. It is inner realms traveling in front of our eyes through words. But what is it? It's like, yo, man, every word Mr. Within says is like this, ambassador, of what his mind sees behind his eyes. But it's the same for everyone, okay? This has been the issue. Mankind doesn't see it. I am convinced there's an invisible civilization here. I'm convinced the most advanced state that a civilization gets, it's beyond the conditional life. In other words, what is the most advanced civilization? Do you know? What are the types of advanced? Let's say there's two types of advanced civilizations, but technically would mean there's only one. Okay, one type of an advanced civilization is a conditional civilization. It is advanced in the conditions it has found. But then there's in some sense, an unconditional advanced civilization. And this is where you'll get goosebumps and you'll treat religion differently. Where else in this world have they given you the idea, okay, of in some sense an absolute world? That means you might be an atheist, but the concept of heaven, the archetype of an unconditional world, This civilization 1.0 has in some sense unfortunately made people, you either love the simulation or hate the truth. That's the miserable stories of civilization 1.0. Do you know what civilization 2.0 is? In the presence of God, I will tell you how I feel. I will tell everybody how I feel in 2026 because it is the privilege. I am the scout. I am the scout. I am the scout. They sent me here earlier. That's the only explanation. So what is coming? What is coming is an incredible, as the human intelligence increases, it will realize it is less conditional, therefore it will dehumanize. The greatest obstacle, all these, excuse me, I'm going to say it, all these stupid world leaders that are starting wars, they should be preparing for winter. Like, what was it? Winter is coming. A very strange winter is coming. Okay, that winter is the dehumanization of the human being. Okay, but what does that mean? It means in the cultural sense. Right now we're like on an energetic level, I don't mind. You guys are just everybody's energy, that's fine. But it's the kinetic energy and the potential energy. Do you understand? Like, why do we see the potential? Why can we notice things before they arrive? In 2026, I honestly feel, okay, like I'm this general. This vision has occurred to me a couple times, where it's as if there's an army, okay, or let me say it this way. Imagine there's an army. I'm in this very giant battlefield. I'm alone walking. Imagine I have a sword. Just one sword in my hand, one single person, walking, and in front of me, I see an army. I see an army. I see the dehumanized army that is marching towards the species, okay? And this is the vision I see in my inner realms. That I just raise my sword in the air, and from the clouds and the sky, the army arrives on Earth to combat the dehumanization. That is it, because the people alive now, civilization 1.0 lost itself a long time ago. I think it lost itself in 2000. I think it lost itself when Facebook came. When did Facebook? It's not based on Facebook. I'm not blaming Facebook. Okay, I'm saying it was during that time. I'm just using Facebook as a reference for that that moment. When I don't know how to explain it. Oh, beloved human species, you're all being distracted by the entertainment of a looping world when you should be preparing, and the whole species should be preparing for what is to come. And what is to come is, as we go towards the future, we will realize we can never find world peace because we are different beings. But we have been given one advantage. They're like, okay, 8.1 billion different DNAs. But they are part of the human class. That's the part of me. That means I can hate the idea of myself, but I can never hate my physical existence because it does not belong to me. It also belongs to the species. Why else am I human? O might of madness, why do you break yourself before you break the world? Because I know myself, I don't know the world. I don't know who any of you are. That means like life used to be normal. I used to be in civilization 1.0, and it was just like, yo man, play the normal game. want what others want because they're all wanting it and you want to feel like you're part of something. I spent my youth. Fuck, sorry guys, I'm sorry. I have had a very intense day today before giving a lecture. Maybe it wasn't even appropriate to give this lecture today. So I apologize, guys. I'm a bit on edge because of the outer realms has me a bit on edge, but whatever. I ask myself, oh, random soul that thinks it's me. Oh, soul that thinks that it is this. What has convinced reality? That it is itself. I don't know. I'm starting to get the feeling, okay, hopefully I will just see the army like step out of the clouds a little bit, and then I think there's no need for me to be here anymore. I just march towards the dehumanized. That means they're like, Mr. Within, what are you gonna do after you've built after you've in some sense successfully activated civilization 2.0? Do you know what I will do when I retire from these talks? Imagine I had given them. I would march into the future at the fastest possible speed. I will go far as I can see to the future, and before the dehumanized enters, I will build bunkers for man. Do you understand? That means it's like we don't see it, what's coming, because we're limited to our just existential location, just where just that little corner of the world we think our whole life is. And when I say dehumanize, there's two factors about it, okay? A part of me has this intensity, and I will tell you guys, even never don't even let me tell you, nobody on this earth can hate me, love me, or in some sense pity me, or understand me more than myself. I have hated myself in ways that even if I have haters and they come, I'll be like, yo man, at least be more creative. Do you know? The thing about the human species is where your attention goes, your world becomes. Why is it dangerous? A person could be like, I think there's this view, okay, we may see that multitasking is the sign of like high intelligence, but honestly, for me, I think there's a mistake there. If I have 100% attention in the moment, when I'm multitasking, that attention is divided. That means like right now, I have an attention to my body, I have an attention to this world, I have an attention to outside of this car that's become my studio in this moment. The attention is to the form and it remains there unless the form is moving. If I'm seeing a film, my attention will remain on the screen. When I see, like, why do we go to an art gallery? We look at the painting. All right, I gave that 3 seconds. All right, now you move to the next painting. Right? So in some sense, change is what keeps attention. Okay? If I said the same thing over and over again, if there was nothing new about it, no new concepts in these talks from the beginning, then it would be in some sense like people are going to get bored. I myself would get bored of even saying the same thing. At some point, it's like, okay, a sort of blindfolded species, self-blindfolded species is like walking and trying to put its hands on the room and being like, yo, man, I know we're somewhere that we can't really see, but what am I touching? What is my soul contacting right now? Is it the world, or is the world a quality or an intention of the soul? Sorry, guys, give me a second. Oof. The army that comes from the clouds is the future generations. I do not expect anything in these 12 years. I have observed the results of this project, of just my effort, of my intention as a soul in this realm. So this is how far I see it. An individual human archetype pushes civilization until the songs of the advanced civilizations begin. Once every human being on earth begins wondering what the most advanced civilization, what the most advanced self would look like, they would in some sense have harbored the inner atmosphere or cultivated the inner environment to be fascinated by the unknown rather than afraid and then reactive into a looping idea. So, I was saying the image is still, the residue of the image is still there in my inner realms. Like it said, I see, yo, how long has this song been playing in the back? My God. But I think it was a good song. Yeah, okay, let's keep the song. Okay, so let's go back to that image, to that vision I have, where pretty much this was the vision. Imagine, guys, I graduated from Toronto Film School, but I haven't made films yet. I've written like tons of scripts, but not tons, maybe like a dozen scripts. But more than a dozen notes that I haven't turned to scripts. But anyways, I'm trying to explain to you this film scene I see. This general walks alone, and in some sense, there's an army facing it, raises its sword into the air, and from the clouds arise, the army comes from the cloud. And they imagine it's like horses. I'm imagining medieval, right? That means imagine you're just that moment. Imagine a diagonal divine intervention in a horizontal looping simulation. That means the past, it's very funny, in 2026, in the outer realms, intense solitude, but in the inner realms, guys, I don't know how to explain this. I have felt this for a while. I don't know if you guys can imagine this, visualize this in your inner realms. It's not even something you can visualize, it's just a feeling, actually. Imagine you're being watched right now, but you're being watched by all the unborn future generations of human beings. You're being watched by the potential of the species. And how would you work? How would you feel? What would your life mean? That you're not just responsible for getting the past to the present. We're also responsible for getting the future to the present. Ask yourselves how, when you live a day, I mean, you guys can write it in the chat section even, right? When you live a day on this planet, okay, how much do you think about the future? And this is the second question, how far do you think about the future? Like, I can imagine like it being very common that the human species in 2026, it's been trained to imagine or envision a future that is maybe like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. 50 is even too much. It starts getting blurrier the more you probabilize and envision into the future. Okay? But the emotions are strangely clear. Do you know? That means it's like you're looking at something that's blurry, but the brain imagines somehow knows what it is, and there's a feeling you have there. You know, but this is not an example for the brain. I'm just saying. The future generations are our future selves. If we identify as a member of a species, they are the future self of humanity, is the future generations, and we are the humanity's 2026 self. We are this species' identity now, based on how we behave, how we move, how far we see, how much we understand that questions open worlds, answers close them. What is the greatest question? Perhaps the final answer. That means if you've been questioning for eons, maybe you just need a final answer. But in a changing world, who is asking what, and by the time it gets an answer, who is there to get the answer? That means when you ask the question, by the time you hear the answer, you've become a different questioner. So, this is the situation. If you've been told that you're a human being on Earth, that's cool. Here's another version of what's going on here. This is an existential system. Simulated, it's a simulation. First of all, very simply, it's a simulation. Okay? It's an existential system. And in the middle of this existential simulation, there's a biological simulation. In the middle of that biological simulation, or in the middle of that physiological simulation, there's a psychological simulation. Now, when we get to the psychological simulation of reality, that's where we have the concept of truth. It's kind of like people couldn't read before language existed. Do you know? They're like, man, I was, reading books before even people had invented language. That's like how badass of a reader I am. And they're like, what's the point of reading? It's like, bro, everything, like, guys, understand this. I will say this. Pretty much this is what I would do, like this is what I don't see teachers doing, and I don't like the archetype of teacher student. I think that's weird. But I think that just for the sake of Civilization 1.0, not for the sake, I mean Civilization 1.0 should change, but for Civilization 1.0, if okay, let's say you're a teacher hearing me right now, a teacher of a school, you have to pause the classroom and explain to all the students the context before you explain the concept. You have to explain to them how to hear you. And even what is the purpose of learning? If I was a teacher, I'd be like, hey kids, hey students, don't you think it's freaking weird you're all in a room? Oh my God, if I was a teacher in the I think God was like, yo, steer this soul away from being a teacher in schools, Because I would go and break the educational system, and they'd be like, "Was this accidental?" I'd be like, "No." Do you know the educational system was wasting paper and time and soul. It was wasting the value of the soul in time by forcing the children to think that the past, by knowing the past, you're prepared for the present. You're prepared for the you're prepared for handling the future even. That's the brain. That's the ignorance. So if I was in the first assignment, I don't care if they were like go and teach any topic, right? Any subject, right? I would pretty much I would pretty much be like, okay, first homework assignment. Why are you all here? Or why are you all in this classroom? Do you know? Or what is the educational system? That would be the greatest thing. First assignment, why was like first assignment to any kid in school should be like, why are you here? I swear, if they do this, the dropout rates in all universities will change because the dropout rates are based on inspiration. Everybody would agree. I'm sure everyone would like, you know, everybody would agree who's accessed those art, who's been in those moments. Your inspiration is what moves you. Pretty much, it's not that you need happiness and life will be solved. You need to decide what is important. This is the healthiest sentence you will ever hear in your life. One of the healthiest sentences. What is important and what is more important? Like they're like, okay, dude, you're a human being. I'm like, okay, I'm a human being. So we have to go and live for the greatness of the human, right? And they're like, okay, you're it's like, wait, they're first like, you're an object. I'm like, okay, so I'm an object and I'm living for the greatness of one object, right? So why not live for the greatness of all objects? In the same way of, did you know this concept exists as an emperor architect? That archetype exists. That's the archetype of this emperor level force re-architecturing civilization. You see, power doesn't have a nature, has the nature of its wielder. Power is like energy, do you know, but in different forms. For example, a billionaire has financial power. Do you know? And if the financial power can be used to do pretty much anything nowadays, right? Because people have forgotten that what is most valuable is not what's out there. It is how out there is being in here. Become fascinated by not how you know what this place is. Become fascinated by how it has always been unknown. Every tradition has been like, every cultural program, like people deep down, they know, they're like, be honest, be true. I want to be honest, I want to be true. Like that's an elevated soul. That's a greater being, an honest soul. Do you know? But what does that mean? If I want to be honest in civilization 1.0, we are humans on earth. If I want to be honest to civilization 2.0 and to the ontological reality, we are unknown beings in an unknown world, and we have to decide together as a species, do we want to live in a more advanced place? Like there were tribes of people, do you know, who they were like living in a place and they're like, okay, there's wolves here, let's relocate, right? And now the whole species has to relocate from a narrative that has tied them down and chained them to only an objective reality, and realize that the system admin gave you a mind so the outer realms can never enslave you. Guys, earlier I said time is the devil. I would say time is the mask of the devil. But the system admin is beyond all moderator archetypes. It's like, I don't care. At some point, it's like, all right, angels are cool. Demons are not cool. It's like, okay, Lakshmi or all these Hindu deities and gods, or all the gods in mythology. All right, whatever, But on some level, what stands at the top of all creation is not created. It's not a created being. How can created beings understand the uncreated? We can just get close to it. And the closest is perhaps when we leave this world. So there's a system admin. We're inside an existential simulation. We're inside a simulation, inside a simulation, original simulation. That means we've been simulated in an original presence of the being, reality. People look for truth. They can't find it because truth is the moment being there unconditionally. The unconditional presence of the moment is the most enlightening truth that humanity finds. But the future is there for a reason. That means, for how long, O humans of this world, for how long is the past gonna, how long should the past identify you? Or I'm saying, for how long is who you were compared to who you now the only range of consideration? The weird thing is, if the unknown didn't exist, life would be meaningless. Being alive is like being an actor in an unending film. But your role, your part, it has an ending. It's as if, man, from some, let's say, very abstract standpoint, and not being disrespectful to any religious notion, what if God was a film director? This is the film. We're all actors in it, okay? And at first you're method acting. That means you've forgotten who you really are. And then you realize, no, you're not the concept that you became. The doors of truth were open before they could ever close. So an unconditional faith beyond the mind stories. The stories of the mind are the individual's interpretation of reality. So on some level, this is the scenario. All of us are unknown beings. We find ourselves in an objective position. From this objective position, we can have a subjective position. That subjective position acts so much more intelligent than the objective position that we cannot limit that intelligence to the objective position. Okay, and so what does that mean? That means everybody is starting in their own world, and who they think they are is based on only what they see, or how far their own world is. But at some point they will realize that the cost of being in your own world is missing out on what is actually there. And I'm surprised that some people are like, man, there's three types, like pessimist, optimist, realist. I'm surprised why many people are not fascinated, are not realists. Because reality is unknown. It's a question mark. Don't let them convince you otherwise. The past doesn't know, doesn't see from where the present sees. The only way a person perhaps can have unconditional faith is through realizing that the moment is also unconditionally being. and to accept the unconditional as a priori to the all conditions of the realm. It's prior to all the conditions of the realm. That means if the truth literally was the unknown, thinking that the truth is in the unknown would be like an immortally lost endeavor. Anybody who wants to, let's say they're like, if you're like Mr. Within, how do I get to civilization 2.0? How do I find my civilization 2.0? Or how do you find civilization 2.0? First, you find your civilization. So that means I'm a human being on this earth. I don't have everybody's eyes and inner experience. When I'm alive here, I see humanity and this human process in a certain way, and a part of me is like, okay, if I like fast forwarded this film of life, what would the advanced civilization look like? Okay, and I find in my inner realms the most advanced civilization my mind can fathom in this moment. Okay? Now, that means in my own world, I found that civilization 2.0. I found my own civilization 2.0 in my inner realms. Now, to find the ontological rather than the epistemological, the ontological civilization 2.0, it is the cost of civilization 1.0. And they're like, why, Mr. Within? Because the cost of driving a Bugatti is not to drive a wagon from the medieval ages. That's the cost. The cost of it is the room, the context. All life is about context. Anybody who is living a meaningless life is because the context of life has become blurry. But just put it in focus. Ask yourself questions that no one else can ask other than you. And you'll realize the ceiling of this world is a force. It's not like some physical thing. Yo, did the head of the species hit an evolutionary threshold? No. It's all about what consciousness identifies. And guys, I will be honest what is happening here. To the secular, I'll say this, to all secular audiences. Forget humans, forget the concept of beings, forget self in a world, forget every concept for one moment. Pause all of that. And just imagine that there are two flat planes that are horizontal, that are parallel to one another. Okay? So imagine, like, right now, do this for me, okay? Okay, you don't have to do it, but I'm just saying, like, whatever, I'm doing it. It's like I'm right now imagining like I'm holding an invisible box. Okay? And my palms are parallel to each other like two square planes. Okay? Now, between these two planes, so I'm just trying to tell you, imagine like two planes parallel to each other. One plane is an invisible field, okay, field of intelligence. The other plane is a visible formed intelligence. And these two planes are interacting with one another, but what enables these two worlds to interact with one another, the ancients called these two planes Mother Earth and Father Sky. So these two planes, an invisible field of intelligence and a visible field of intelligence, are parallel to each other, and there is suddenly this force in the middle that is in some sense connecting to those two in a vertical way, imagine. Okay? And all I'm telling you is that what life is happening between unknown space and known form. And the known form is its own plane. The unknown plane is its own. Oh man, the image is changing in my inner house. Yeah, the image went. They say the cost of an old life, excuse me, the cost of a new life is your old life. Now, Mr. Within is telling you the cost of an advanced civilization is an unadvanced civilization. Your failures are in some sense the permission to succeed, the deservance to succeed. That means if someone tries their best, whatever happens, what they deserve is not based on the consequence, it's based on the effort. That means, all right, even if civilization 2.0 was built and no one saw who built it, the system admin did. That means this is not just a performance in the presence of the human species, this even me giving this talk. It is about what are we all in the presence of? It's like my species activate, like we were raised on cartoons of like giant robots, or like, I don't know, like advanced, like advanced like Power Rangers or something, you know, and all these robots connecting to one another, becoming one giant robot. That's the vibe of an advanced civilization. That means we don't fail to integrate. And integration doesn't even mean replacement. It's all about realizing, do you want to identify with your past self? Do you want to identify with your present self? Or do you want to identify with your future self? Who are you right now? Are you your future, your present, or your past? Anybody who says, I'm all of them, you haven't understood it. You're missing the point. You're escaping. You're escaping into another context. The honest answer is, if I identify with the present, if I identify with the past, it's as abstract as it doesn't exist anymore. That means, yo, man, the past, like, you, dude, what are memories? The world still exists in my mind. The world still exists in the presence of awareness. You know, it's as if somebody says, Mr. Within, you know, are you telling everybody to do what you're doing? I'll be like, no, you've missed the point. I'm telling all of you from your own inner realms to march towards the most advanced state that is known to your consciousness, because you are unique and you're here beyond the choice of man. You are here on divine command. Divine command means that the world is a deeper place, and materialists think the surface of the ocean is the whole ocean. Wait until you step into the water. Wait until you notice what's after this life. Because, guys, the most important thing, let me tell you, if somebody says, Mr. Within, is there a level higher than leadership? I will be like, yeah. We are used to hearing our own heartbeat, or not even minding it. You know how they say if you live by the ocean, you don't hear it anymore? It's like we don't hear our breathing. Like when I talk, I don't hear my breathing. I don't hear my heartbeat. Ah, what can be said? What can be done? What can we do? What is the greatest strategy in the outer realms? What is the greatest strategy in the inner realms? You know, what does humanity not know yet? What is fascinating about this world? Why is the unknown there? If we knew everything, there would be nothing to do. If we had, excuse me, if we knew everything, there would be nothing to know. If we had done everything, there would be nothing to do. If we were everything, there would be nothing to be. Eventually, everything returns to the freedom that it is given. The greatest realization is that you were not just in a world you saw, you were also the seer in the presence of the beyond. For finally, the might of madness will learn. Serve the most advanced state, and the most advanced will happen. Rise, mankind, rise. Rise from the slumber of the past defining who you have to be in the present. Who you were was a show you've already seen. You don't go to the same cinema and see the same show, but people who are depressed, they're living in that cinema. Open your eyes to a world that is awaiting the great activation of its newest member. You're all, the moment you care for the species, the moment you access species level consciousness, you are a member of civilization. You are already living in the advanced civilization. When you realize that we are missing the point by trying to prove the point, that my heart reminds me of the gentleness of the divine and its mercy. But my ego, it's fighting something. And life is like, yo, I will make, do you know what it is? God is using human beings to, in some sense, make Shaitan, the anti-human force, the anti-human moderator, to, in some sense, break down from inside. That means God is going to forgive a crying Shaitan at the end. Because Shaitan will see that these souls that are in this simulation of this time, in this weird random room that's designed. Oh, anti-human moderated, I know you want me to love this world. But the creator's standing right there, bro. Oh Lord of worlds, oh system admin to all systems, oh original being, forgive my simulated ignorance that dimmed the world. And guide me to brighten it. For you created light not just for a reason, for our life beyond reason. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. In the presence of an original moment, all simulated beings are freaking out. All of you calm down. Do you know reality is an original presence? And in some sense, it's a sort of psychological, personal theater until you realize it's more impersonal. You don't take yourself seriously. You become fascinated by the geometry of existence and wonder about its design. Wonder how you're like this, like imagine you were like this bird, like this eagle, you know, or this mighty bird that was flying through all the branches of the forest without its wings touching anything. And in the same way, you or this unknown force traveling through this known simulation that in some sense keeps you in looping personalities. Your greater joy stands in a greater world. And if you can see one, you belong to one. That means I don't know what God knows, but I know that God knows. what God knows. I have faith in truth. The falsehood can scare me. But truth is in the room. That means everything that scared me when I was young, I should have just looked back and be like, yo, you don't see yourself. You get more scared why existence exists. It exists for a purpose of service. It's as if everything in the world is waiting for the greatest performance of the human species, which is the most advanced civilization in the outer realms, and behind our eyes we become identified with advanced states rather than specific forms in a specific state. I'm not a character in a story because the world reminded me. That it was born to. That means if we are born in the world is born in the unconditional original moment. Truth is so merciful that it is letting its creation experience its absence. In 2026, human beings perceive the end of life as death. But in the advanced civilization, the far future, how they would see it that there is no such thing as death from the moment you were born, and in all your conscious attendance, all your attendance into the conscious waking states that you have lived through, you are not, you're going towards death. You are a simulation that is realizing everything is going towards the original. They're like, how did you become great? I remembered why it was all here. Finally, it will be known. Consciousness will smile, and so will dawn. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced. In honor of the original unconditional moment that all conditional moments have arisen from and will return to, in the greatness of the system admin to this world. The mods are created beings, we're created beings, everything else has a form except the creator. Forms can try to become equal to the creator, but the son is not the father. But on some level, the legacy is. Oh, all simulated beings in the conscious in this universal sector, or as far as this can be heard. And just envision how awesome the most advanced state of all conditions would be. It's as if that it's like all the greatness all in everywhere in the world. Notice that their greatness was created and they marched towards the original. That means you fear this world if you treat the simulation as real. If you treat reality as a simulation, you will realize there's a greater intelligent activity happening beyond human comprehension here. Anyways, thank you. Thank you for listening. God bless mankind.